Good evening, everybody. You're welcome to another session on relocating to Thailand as a teacher. So I had done the part one a few days ago without explaining some of the things you will require to be able to be considered in the first place before you even start your visa processes. So I remembered that much later, and I decided to do another video outlining the items you will need before you start your visa application process. So let me take a look at some of the things I have here. So one of the first things you will need is that you need a bachelor's degree. If you have a bachelor's degree in a subject or a course like English, that will be fantastic. If you major in education, you have an added advantage. But because we in Thailand, as non-native English speakers, we struggle with, or we rather compete with, native English speakers. So I tend to advise potential applicants to avoid coming here to teach English. You will always be considered in the second place. You will never be their first choice. You'll always be given a second choice. You'll always be a second choice consideration, because they have a lot of Americans, British, Australians, New Zealand citizens coming here to apply for such positions as well. One of the things you need to realize is that Thailand is a relatively affordable country with some of the development indices of the West. They are not very developed to the Western level, but they are way beyond the third world countries' development level. They are considered a middle income, higher middle income country. That's how it is categorized. So because of that, a lot of people who come from, say, a country like US, and probably they have their investments in the US, if they come here with the little money they get from the US, they live very comfortably here. So a lot of people relocate from the United States or United Kingdom to come here and work. And when they come in here, they want to teach, because it's easy for them to get such roles as native English speakers. And they also are earning income, probably through their investment, or probably doing something else, or probably they, usually through investment. So let's say you have a house in the US that is rented, you own your house and it's rented out, and you come here and you're teaching as well. So you have income from two ends. You're earning income from the US, and of course they won't pay you $1,000 in the US. Meanwhile, you can survive on $1,000 here. So with the income from the US and whatever you're getting here, you're living very comfortably. So most of them will always come from places like the United States or the UK or Australia to come and work here. And when they come here, they're offered roles like teaching, and they want to teach English. So I wouldn't advise any African or any Nigerian coming here if you have other skills like in tech, in math, in engineering, to come here and still want to teach English. I will advise you, because this gives you an added advantage, I'll advise you to come in here and teach those STEM courses. STEM courses are science, technology, I think engineering and math courses. So if you can teach STEM courses, you have an added advantage, because not only can you teach English, you can teach some of the areas, some of the subjects that they are looking for teachers in, but they don't always get them from these other countries. Remember, STEM courses are also in high demand in places like the US and the UK, and so it's not easy for their own citizens who are highly demanded there to leave such countries to come over here. So when you come in here as a STEM teacher, you have you don't have as many offers as English, or many positions as English teachers, but once you get a STEM, there are positions for STEM. that's just of course, in a school they may have more people looking for English teachers than looking for STEM course or STEM subject teachers. But if you can come in as a STEM subject teacher, it makes it easier for you. So if you did something like computer science, engineering, or something like that, and you want to teach, this is something you can also consider. So teaching, having a bachelor's degree is a prerequisite. Then the second one is you need to have an English proficiency qualification. English speaking, like English, not generally speaking, not only speaking, rather English English proficiency qualification. What do I mean by this? So if you have something like the TOEFL is different from TEFL. TOEFL is the test of English as a foreign language, which is equivalent to the IELTS that we normally do in Nigeria to go to the UK. They're about the same standards, or rather the same kind of examination. TOEFL is for the American system, or it comes from the American system, while IELTS comes from the British system. I can't remember the full meaning of IELTS because most times you just write IELTS. So the TOEFL, if you come in with, you can either come in with a TOEFL or an IELTS score or qualification. Now, I don't know how TOEFL is ranked because I've never taken TOEFL before. I've always been doing IELTS. Of course, in Nigeria, IELTS is much more common. Usually, unless you want to go to school in the US, or especially secondary school, that's when you're going to be writing TOEFL. If you're going to university, most times they'll ask you to write something like, okay, you can still write TOEFL, but sometimes they'll ask for a GRE. For postgraduate, you go for a GRE. But most times we tend to go to the UK, and so IELTS is what we are mostly familiar with. So if you're coming here, you need to have an IELTS score or a TOEFL score, something to show that your level of English is a bit advanced. It's not just basic. And what do I mean by that? That means you have to have something like B2 IELTS. Minimum should be a B2 level of IELTS. I don't know what B2 scores. I think 6 or so is a B2. That 6 is a B2. I'm not sure how it's graded. Of course, if you look at the TOEFL grading sheet, the IELTS grading sheet, you'll see the scores and what level of English language they reflect. So you need to have an IELTS score, and with a minimum, I think, of about 6. I did mine. I had 8.5. My last IELTS was about 8.5, and I had 9 in two areas, in writing and in reading. In writing I had 8. In writing I had in speaking I had 8, in writing I had 9, in listening I had 9, and then in I can't remember the other one. I think speaking was 7.5. Reading, writing, listening, and I can't remember, but I know I had 2 9s in those two of the 4 tested areas. So you need to also remember that you need that's the second thing, bachelor's degree and an IELTS or TOEFL score. Then the third thing you need is a TEFL. TEFL is another qualification you need, and you need a 120-hour TEFL program. What do I mean by this? TEFL is teaching English as a foreign language. It's different from TOEFL. TOEFL is an exam to test your English level proficiency. TEFL is a program, a teaching program to prepare you to teach English to those who are learning English not as a second language but as a foreign language. There's a difference between a second language and a foreign language. In Nigeria, English is more or less like a second language because we speak our native languages. We speak Yoruba, we speak Igbo, we speak TV, we speak Hausa. There are so many languages that often that's the first thing that we learn. Not all the times. Some people start with English, but most times English is introduced as a second language, maybe in secondary schools. In some other, the times have changed now. A lot of people speak English and they struggle with their native languages. But the standard is that your native language is what your parents speak, what you were born into, what is known as the language in a particular region. Let's say I'm from Abia State and Abia State speaks Igbo. That's Igbo is our language, and so that's your native language. And then English is a second language because that's like the official language we use in the country. It's used widely in schools, in official arrangements, in programs. So English is a second language. Meanwhile, in Thailand, English is a foreign language. It is not a second language because it is not spoken officially here. It is just used because probably Thailand is a tourist country and they know that a lot of people, for them to get on with the world, for them to attract investment and bring in revenue from tourism, they need to be able to speak English. So English here is a second language. It's not the official language. Documents are not written in English. Documents are written in Thai. It all depends on, probably a private organization will ask for a document to be translated into English just because they need to deal with foreigners. But on official papers, everything that is done here officially, news, announcements, letters, even contracts, they write it in Thai. So English here is a second language, is a foreign language, not a second language. So TEFL is a program that teaches you how to teach English to learners who learn English as foreign language. That said, the TEFL you require is a 120-hour TEFL. I don't think there's something less than that. Most times, TEFL is something that gets its accreditation from some government bodies in the UK. But there are so many companies that run TEFL, but you need to check, are they accredited by any exam accreditation body in the UK or the US? Because so many companies, it's not like it has a standard, I don't know how to put it. Let's say a school, it's just like a school that anybody can open and say, I'm teaching English and I'm teaching TEFL, but they need to get accreditation from companies, from government bodies or private organizations, private institutions in the UK or US to be accepted globally as TEFL accrediting body. So if you're going to run your TEFL program, please check, do they have any affiliation with any US organization or UK organization? Otherwise, you might finish your program and your certificate is not being accepted or is not accepted by other institutions, saying that, like, they don't recognize the TEFL certificate. So you need to be careful. So you need a TEFL degree, or rather TEFL qualification, not a degree.